network, and it's a great pleasure. They're sponsoring the event tonight. So, big round of applause for IDC. Andrew is just there he is. I'm looking for you. He's in the audience himself. It's a great pleasure with Andrew that, as it says in the article here, actually came out today. South China Morning Post did an article on Andrew Wong. There's lots of Andrews in the world, Andrew Wongs, but there's only one special one. In fact, he's in the record books as the youngest managing partner of a digital currency platform. So it's a great pleasure to welcome Andrew tonight. You should probably also, just before I quickly invite him up, you probably realise that cryptocurrencies are really growing in this region. We have, further ado, I'd like to welcome Andrew Wong, Mr. Andrew Wong from IDCM, please. Round of applause.
Thanks everyone for having me. I'm Andrew from the IDCM side. I'm going to take some more just easier. So speaking to a bunch of you, prior, I'm probably conscious of how much people know about cryptocurrency, so I might actually take a little bit of a step back, keep this relatively informal, and if you guys have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to ask me. But from my side, just a little bit of a quick background, and thanks for pulling up the article. But basically, I used to work at a bank called JP Morgan, and I traded Asian markets for about 10 years. And I started investing in Bitcoin and whatnot in 2014, and that's not as any product of anything. It was more clients were doing it, and very smart people who actually have money in the game were saying, get into cryptocurrencies, you won't regret it. I just blindly followed, and with that, we caught a very, very lucky wave, and now we are here where we are. So that's the kind of background of things. And this year earlier, I left JP because of the opportunity cost and moved to this kind of cryptocurrency world. We started with mining first, and then moved to the exchange, and we do a series of other things like market making, et cetera, et cetera. But maybe I'll take a little bit of a step back just to walk everyone through kind of cryptocurrencies, and just so everyone kind of understands relatively what it is. I'm sure everyone's heard of an IPO, so like when you issue out equity, it's another way of raising money. It's actually going to be a third asset class of another form of raising money, because outside that, there's no other way. That's why this, it's coming up with so much interest. Cryptocurrencies is simply a form of blockchain. Blockchain is that technology that is a buzzword. Everyone throws it about. What is the blockchain, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure most of you hopefully would be quite familiar with what the blockchain is. And you can just think of it as a decentralization concept, where currently we have a centralized concept of governments and whatnot. Decentralization basically is a trustless peer system, which is blockchain. Cryptocurrencies are simply currencies that power the blockchain. So hopefully that's a very quick overview. And my belief in cryptocurrencies and why I kind of left banking, traditional banking world to move into this is quite simple really. So if you look at history, where we started with bartering, that's the normal thing. I'll trade you my mic for your wallet or wherever it may be. We moved from bartering into kind of a gold standard, not even gold standard, commodities. So silver, gold, bronze. You have people literally saying in the medieval ages, I will pay your weight in gold, I'll pay your weight in silver, et cetera, et cetera. Then you had kingdoms issuing out paper-backed. So basically a kingdom would say, do you trust me that I have this much gold reserves, et cetera, et cetera. And then we moved into what we have now, fiat currency. Fiat is faithful Latin, and basically means, do you trust the government? So you have the US dollar, you have the Hong Kong dollar, et cetera, et cetera. All these are simply evolutions, if you will, of currency or money history as you know it. Now you also have a concept of online payments with credit cards and whatnot. So we're moving into a kind of digital kind of system. And blockchain and cryptocurrencies is my firm belief would be the next one. And with cryptocurrencies and whatnot, that's the kind of quick history overview. I think a good way to kind of go about it in a more simplistic fashion is what are people interested in, and how what exactly from tonight I'd like to kind of provide some value to you guys, so you can at least walk away with some understanding of besides the basic kind of concept of cryptocurrencies, what you can read off the internet, how this can actually work for you, or just in general something to think about where we are now and where I firmly believe we're moving to the future. So where we are now is a kind of time period where Bitcoin, the whole hype has kind of died down a little bit. So So it's touched 20,000, it's now back to 6,400 roughly, give or take. We've got Ethereum coming up second place and whatnot, Ripple, etc., etc., etc. Now, this is important. Why? Because we have gone through a massive round of people fundraising on Ethereum on what they call ERC20, which is a kind of, you can look at tokens and whatnot. It's the more popular choice, and that's because of the protocol system. But in short, what that means is a lot of investors have got burnt. If you look at the price of Ethereum now, and you are looking at a very bare, depressed market, but crypto is not wiped out, or neither is blockchain for that matter. And even, for example, JP Morgan now is employing blockchain on all its settlements. So the technology is definitely there. The question about cryptocurrencies and whether they will exist in the future going forward is right now the kind of debate. But there is so that's where we are now. Where we're moving to the future is a concept called STOs. STOs stand for securitized token offerings, just so everyone's familiar. It essentially is exactly like a cryptocurrency, like an ICO, which is an initial coin offering, exactly like an IPO. But in this instance, you are regulated. So it is now enforceable ICOs. That's the easiest kind of way to think about it. And so I'd like to add there that STOs and ICOs, right? You've gone through a wave of a lot of retail, basically investors coming in and pumping and dumping or just trading it nonstop on BitMEX or whatever. STOs is a whole new game because now institutional money will be unlocked and institutional waves of money will come in, and that's about 15 to 16 times what we've seen so far in the ICO market. So I'm not sure if anyone's looking for a hot tip or anything like that, but it's more just if you are interested in actually making quick bucks or money into crypto world, STOs would be your best bet to look into. At present, there is no real STO out there, and that's because you need an STO compliant exchange, which we're also, as IGC, trying to get. An STO compliant exchange requires a government to basically approve it, which means that you have to write something on a blockchain act or have the government validate you. Everyone is waiting for the US currently to move first, and Coinbase is probably the closest one, just to put things in context. But once that happens, they're going to set a precedent, and the rest of the world will follow the regulation, and you'll have this wave of everyone kind of coming up and they're saying, we have an STO compliant exchange, and therefore we can also do our STOs. So to summarize, we are currently in an environment of a waiting game where we're waiting for America to kind of move first and say the SEC to basically approve it for STO compliant exchanges, have its own set of protocols and on rules and STOs and how things are regulated. So to take a step back from that as well, probably to give you a little bit of context, imagine there's a concept called USDC. It's like USD Tether. USDC is the US dollar, but digital. Why would a government basically regulate or care about a digital currency? The reason why they care is tax evasion is pretty much zero, because every single STO will go through a more rigorous KYC process, which means every investor will actually be very heavily scrutinized. So if I tried to trade on any Coinbase system, they would know who I am, how much money I've made, i.e. I cannot avoid taxes, I have to be compliant straight away, and most importantly, AML, which is anti-money laundering, is a huge win for the government. This is essentially the government proposition, and everyone's trying to regulate it using what they call a Howey's test, whether or not it's securities or not, but that's the kind of environment we're in, and we're moving into very rapidly, I would say in the next 3 to 6 months, give or take. Probably not quoting me on that, but 3 to 6 months is roughly where I think we move into an STO environment. So hopefully that's a context of everything, where we started, where we are now, and where we're moving to in the future. I probably would like to share with you guys some very practical applications of the ICOs I've seen. So I'm not, I'm kind of conscious that not maybe everyone is very tech savvy here in that, talking about protocols or Byzantine theorems and stuff like that. So we'll move into more commercial applications that people can understand. The one that I will talk about is actually probably I would say to look at the government structure, and a government structure will very easily tell you how an ICO will trade. So for example, Japan. Japan and Korea, one of the biggest Asian markets in the world. Japan has a cryptocurrency tax of roughly 45%. They have income tax and whatnot, and Japan's also a country which has huge deficit. Its interest rates are close to zero. They've been hit by earthquakes, Fukushima, radiation poisoning, the list goes on, and they're pretty much not in a great place. Now, as a government, you need to raise money to kind of make up for all these shortfalls. So for them, they charge a huge deal on cryptocurrency taxes. So one of the coins, or one of the currencies that we work with, and this is not about shilling coins or anything, but it's more about you guys understanding practical applications of how cryptocurrencies can be used, is and I won't even shill it, so I won't even tell you what it's called. But basically what they do is they let you swap out your ICO for physical gold. So I'm not sure if any of you have ever played pachinko in Japan, but it's a similar concept, where gambling is illegal in Japan currently. And by playing pachinko, you win these little balls, and then you go to the back alley and you exchange it for gold. It's the same thing in crypto now. So you can take your cryptocurrency, your ICO, go to this exchange and physically redeem it for gold, sell your gold, and your gold doesn't get taxed at 45%. But that's an example of one practical application of cryptocurrency that hopefully is entertaining for you guys all, so you guys understand that. A second one, which I also thought is extremely interesting, is ICOs are traditionally used for raising money, but what if I told you that that's not actually the only primary reason? And the reason why I say that is because we've worked with other projects, and an interesting one is I don't think anyone's actually considered, and hopefully this is of value to you guys, from a tax perspective, how you could use an ICO. So ICOs, which I just previously kind of went through very quickly though, is raised on Ethereum, most of them, for a very simple kind of contract reason. And Ethereum is seen as technically R&D on a balance sheet. So when you raise it on any balance sheet and you have an R&D item, that's actually expenses, which means you can actually declare a tax shield. So when you raise 20 bucks or 30 bucks of cash, a lot of businesses can actually use this as a tax shield to protect against real life revenue if they get it approved by whichever authority they kind of go in and issue their currency. That itself is an invaluable advice that will save you 20 million if you can raise that as well. You're basically double dipping. You have raised an ICO and you've also kind of created a very strong tax shield for yourself that covers you hopefully over the next 3 to 5 years. So that's example number 2 that I just kind of went through, and that's because I'm working on a project right now that's already done it, and I thought it would be an interesting commercial aspect to kind of share with you guys, because a lot of people are, I feel, too focused on the technical applications of crypto. So for example, this is the best protocol because it does ABC, and no one really understands what these protocols are. But hopefully these examples are much simpler for everyone to understand, and it's much more commercial applications, and this is what actually people are doing right now on a day-to-day basis, because they don't need to understand how deep and in-depth the protocol is. It's like any other tech product. So you take your subjectivity out of it and you take a step back and you look at it and you say, well, this is a great piece of technology, but if no one uses it and there's no what they call adoption, then there's really no kind of sustainability or kind of evolution of that protocol. So this is why I'm personally more focused on the commercial aspects. So those 2 examples I gave you are great examples that I think are how the pioneers of crypto are finding ways to kind of regulate or kind of use current frameworks and kind of profit from it. And here's the last one I'll probably leave you all with that I hope is quite of a value add. One of the biggest problems in the world is inheritance tax. Inheritance tax is a huge chunk of the taxes, from 45 to 55%, depending on which country you live in. America, I'm from Australia, and Australia's huge taxes on kind of an inheritance. So touch wood, if you passed away or if your parents passed away and they would leave with a large sum of money, that money goes up into a trust, is locked up and then taxed before it's released to you. There's a whole kind of time frame as well as a massive tax gap before it gets to you. So what if I told you that in Korea right now, this is happening? A more practical application of this is to have a son. Well, let me step back a bit. But the way you would do it is you would write an ICO as the son. And assuming you have a father who's a very wealthy dude, you would write in your ICO and basically have your father invest into the ICO, and with enough OTC dealers, you could actually move that money out of the country without getting taxed. Again, I'm not facilitating money laundering or anything like that. It's more a very practical application, and I'll tell you why this is very practical. In history of finances, and I've gone through the whole kind of equity, fixed income, and whatnot. You will only see issues when a lot of people, like your moms and dads, get hurt when they lose financial investments, and that's true of any kind of asset class. When there's enough populace and a mass majority that comes in and says, we're getting scammed by this kind of random coin, or this product is a scam, wealth management products in China, the whole list goes on. What happens is then the regulator steps in and then everyone gets kind of screwed over. But in this kind of transaction that I just mentioned, from inheritance tax, it's literally peer-to-peer, which means that if you're the SFC or the regulator of any kind of country, the HKMA, what have you, you don't need to spend resources, or you're not as likely to spend resources on this kind of concept, because it's just not worth your time. You're better off, protecting the people of the public rather than kind of go into these kind of transactions, which is why these transactions are allowed to happen in Korea and they're happening right now as we probably speak, and that's how a lot of people get through their inheritance tax kind of playset. But yeah, so I thought that'd be interesting to kind of share 3 practical examples of what we look at day to day, and as we work with many protocols and many tokens to list my exchange, and hopefully I'm not shilling the exchange, but it's more just having an understanding for everyone as an information add how we can use cryptocurrencies besides trading it, which is I think very as an underlying level 1. These are like the level 2s and 3s, and as we move into the STO environment, arbitrage strategies, all these kind of things will come into play, and that's I think the evolution as we move into a more regulated kind of proper asset class. pretty much it from my side. Does anyone have any questions?
Hi, my name is Steven Mostavi, and I'm a blogger and I'm a VeChain ambassador. And I want to ask you a question. What do you think is more important from the point of view of KYC? KYC to investors or KYC to ICO? Simple question.
No, thanks for that question. I would say definitely, without doubt, your KYC to your investors are most important. Just given that, if I understand your question correctly, you want to know who the investors are into your ICO, because predominantly ICOs, like I said, are a form of money raising, right? So you need to know where that money is sourced from. The KYC concept is predominantly just used to combat that, so you understand where money is coming from at all times. That said, knowing your founding team is also equally important, but from an investor standpoint, knowing what they're investing in and knowing where that money is ultimately also coming from, as a massive hindrance as it is huge right now and will be even bigger as you have regulations step up and require that any ICO has a robust KYC concept. So you're not going to be able to get away with raising money that easily if you wanted to kind of pass STO regulations.
What will be the difference between, what will be the main difference between STO and ICO?
The main difference is regulation. So right now, like I said, ICOs are not enforceable. So for example, if I raised an ICO under my utility and I said, here's my company Andrew. Company Andrew makes $100 a year, and my ICO is raised on my revenue. So 20% of my revenues are carved out in this ICO, and I say whoever buys my tokens, it basically gets enabling to my 20% of revenue. Right? Because I could raise money like that, or I could raise money and say, let me dilute my company, or I could write a bond and say, I owe you $50 and you lend me $50. These are different ways of raising money that are traditionally in our current market. So an ICO, where people looked into it, is exactly that. I will promise you future utility if you give me X. But that was never really enforceable. So whatever ICO you've invested in, you can rage and complain on Twitter or in Telegram or whatever you want, but that's not really enforceable by government or regulatory authority. STOs, it's now enforceable. That's the only predominant difference. And the only reason why they'll enforce it is because the STO exchange and the STO product. So I'm not sure you guys are familiar with like Polymath, T0, all these kind of concepts. So they're basically guys who are very close. So Polymath enables you to list any STO, going through that kind of providers. So you need to pick KYC guys, you need to pick lawyers, all these guys that have been government approved. So when they have those records, right, it's all now tracked by the government, and there's a regulatory body to enforce that this STO does not become a scam, and that people are protected, and that your audit documents, like for example, let's say I carved out 20% of my revenue, but that 20% is now audited to say dollar for dollar where that dollar is, and that dollar should go to this investor because they own X amount of tokens at the end of whatever financial year. So similar to a dividend concept. So now that's very, very much enforceable, literally line by line.
So it will be something different on between of IPO and ICO, right?
Yeah, so it's literally moving into the IPO stage. But where IPO means you have to dilute your company because of equity, this one is not. But we are basically saying you can now have access to the company's revenue, you can have access to the company's assets, whatever they produce or whatever it is, so it's time value. But all it is, technology is the same, it's just now enforceable. That's how the predominant difference.
I have a question. So does that mean that, sorry, my name is Lorenzo. Does that mean that we should, as investors, start to move away from ICOs into STOs? And does that mean, as a result of that, ICOs is going to be something of the past progressively?
That's a good question. No, not necessarily. You don't have to shy away from it, but you need to be more diligent about it. What you see in the market right now is probably 99% ICO dominated, 1% STOs. That's going to revert, in my personal opinion, and you're going to see 99% STOs, 1% ICOs. So there are things that don't need to be securitized because they just don't. It's like me telling you, does this have to be on the blockchain? Absolutely not. There's a bunch of things. So for example, let's say, let me start with a blockchain example. So for example, you have a lot of companies that say, I want to raise money on the blockchain, I want to raise my ICO. But the company doesn't even really need to raise it. Like for example, if I made tables and I started selling tables, outside maybe a supply chain play, which is saying, which part of the table came from where, but no one really kind of needs to know the transparency of it. If you try to raise it on the table's utility, like just table serving its purpose for revenues, that ICO really has very little value to be on a blockchain, right? So when you move into STO world, that's no different. So the STO world, which is securitized, the way you're going to think about it is, does it act as a security? Which is, currently in status quo, we look at a thing which is quite outdated from 1992 called the Howey's test, which is set in America as a precedent. That basically says, is this kind of project, is this kind of a utility a dividend-bearing asset? That's the kind of somewhat traditional, somewhat standard definition. And if it's not, then it's not. So then it does not deserve to be STO.
One more question. At what level is it securitized? Is it at the national level or international? Is it international governing body?
No, it would be exactly like the stock market. The way I think about it is, for example, you want to trade shares in the NASDAQ, right? Take a step back from that. Right now, you have all these consumers plugged into exchanges. I think you'll have intermediary brokers sitting there in the middle, like for example, Citibank, HSBC. You will be one of their consumers. Citibank has a license to trade STOs via the exchange, and it will amalgamate orders and basically send them to the exchange. From there, now we'll see a shutdown of exchanges. We'll see maybe 1 or 2 per country. It's like me telling you the NASDAQ exists in the US, HSI exists in Hong Kong. Every country has its own kind of similar kind of exchange, and one that's kind of regulated by government. What you'll see is then you have brokers that come up maybe 15 to 20. They do the KYC instead of the consumer, and that's how I see it progressing into a very equity-related world.
Is that going to start creating even a new industry?
When you say new industry, you mean?
For example, we have the stock exchange, and we have the STO exchanges.
Yeah, I think, the NASDAQ's already moved. The NASDAQ has opening its own little crypto exchange. The way to think about it is this, right? Currently, again, take a step back, look at markets right now. The problem with the markets right now is, in the equities market, probably 1% of the world's capital is really set. So for example, you can only trade that much. And if you were a mom and dad shop and you wanted to raise money, you can't even pay for the listing on any exchange because you don't make enough money, you can't really issue out debt, no one's going to buy it. So there's all these problems. But now if you're securitized, I'm securitized in Hong Kong and somebody wants to buy me in Brazil for whatever reason, right? Now they can. And anyone can start owning parts of assets on the blockchain, which is now kind of more transparent for everyone.